a lecturer from University of Science Islam Malaysia. I was a lecturer in UUM from 1994 and then moved to USIM since 2009. And my background is in computer science. So I got my first degree, Bachelor of Science in Computer Science from University of New South Wales, Australia. And then Masters of Computer Science from UKM and then PhD from UUM. And my research area is artificial intelligence and specifically on data mining or machine learning today they call it. Okay, first of all, thank you for all participants who have registered today. What I will be sharing today more of tips, how to organize your thoughts on writing strategies, thesis writing strategies, and this come from my experience on supervising PhD students and master students. So I've under my supervision, I have actually graduated about 20 PhD students. More PhD students, about 4 or 5 master's students in bioresearch. And at the same time, through my experience as an examiner, PhD and masters, which I have done more than 40 PhD, 4 PhD and also some masters, including from students, candidates from Australia and India. So I hope I will be able to share with you some of this experience, some tips on how to organize your thoughts and probably a little bit of how to actually maneuver on your research and finally writing up your thesis. Okay, so I hope my voice is loud and clear. And just before we begin our session, may I just, can you just put in the chat box which university you are registered and which program, PhD or master's, just to get a rough idea on the background of our participant today. So can you just share in the chat box which university that you are from? Okay. OUM, EDD, Haja Nozia, can you share with me what's EDD? Is it Education Doctorate Program, is it? Haja Nozia? Haja Nozia? Okay, I can see some from
Doctorate of Education.
Education, right? Okay, thank you, Aja. Okay, you can IIUM, Math Master, right? Okay, thank you for your response. So, okay, and probably just to share some of our, the recent happening, which is happening in Palestine. So our PhD student, he just got his PhD about this year, and he went back to Gaza probably about 2 or 3 weeks ago. And then his wife, the Viva should be on the 23rd October, but their house were bombed, and so Dr. Muhammad and his wife and also 4 of their children also was killed in that bombing. So probably we can recite Al-Fatiha for them, and may Allah reward them al-Jannah. Bismillah. Okay, thank you. Okay, so now what I will be sharing today, number one, some tips on how you can do the mapping of your story and tools, which is related to your thesis, of course. So how to organize and how to do the mapping, yeah, from your topic until your research output, and how to gradually introduce, yeah, the story or the thesis in while you are doing your writing. And this is actually a tips from my supervisor, Professor Safa Idris from UTM. So he when he read through my first draft, so he said, don't put everything in chapter 1. So you have to learn how to introduce the topics bit by bit, okay, and so that you would sort of get your reader to read through from page 1 until to the last page of your thesis. Okay, gradually introduce and put the details in a later chapters. Okay, so what is a research problem? I'm sure most of you have probably might have taken research methodology course or a workshop and so on. So this is just to highlight how to actually identify the research problem through some tools that I would introduce, which probably you are already familiar with it. And then what do you plan to achieve, which is actually your research objective, and how do you plan to solve it, which is your research methodology. So how you put all these items in your thesis. And the most important thing is when you write your thesis, you have to keep asking, so what, you know? So so this is, for example, you found out you have identified, or you have identified a problem, and ask yourself, so what? So it is a problem, then so you have to give answers to the so what question, okay? So and you come up with a solution, and you have to ask yourself, so what with that solution, and so on. Okay, so that will help also to actually give the direction in your work. Okay, so let us go to the first one, mapping your story and the tools. So what is a thesis? Just a quick one. It has to be an original research, non-plagiarized, and it must be written in a scholastic approach. Now, my background is computer science or IT, ICT. So some students, they are used to project-based, project-based report, project-based writing. So for example, they are IT consultants, they are software developers. So it takes them quite a challenge to shift from a project-based writing to a research-based writing. So a thesis must be a scholastic approach. The focus is research. The focus is on the contribution, the novelty, okay, and what is the new solution, a new approach that you are proposing in your thesis. So it's not just a project-based, it has to be with from the perspective of research. Okay, and so because of all this need, you need to really organize your thoughts. You have 3 years, maybe 4 years, to come up with your thesis. Okay, and you will have hundreds and hundreds of articles to read. So how do you organize all this so that at the end you will come up with about probably 300 pages of a thesis? Okay, so thesis is an argument writing. So it's not a textbook. So sometimes we write our thesis like a textbook. So telling what is this, what is A, what is B, what is C. Okay. So but thesis is an argument writing. Okay. So we might be describing A, and we will be criticizing, but A, something is wrong with A, and I would like to introduce A prime. Okay, and you will give your argument why we need a new solution, for example. So it's an argument writing. And okay, and you have to explain your logical claim. So you have to do a lot of justification why you use A, why algorithm B, why use technique C, for example, and why your sampling is 100 instead of 200. So okay, so you have to justify the decision that you have made in your research, and finally that you need to write. Okay, so thesis, the main content of your thesis is proposing a new way of doing something, a new approach, a new method, a new technique, okay, maybe a new parameters and so on. Okay, so that is the central idea of thesis. So make sure we are clear, thesis is not a project report. Okay, so project report, you could be solving a routine problem, okay, just a routine, and it could be a routine solution. Okay, but thesis, the problem is a research problem, is a theoretical problem, it could be, or and you will be solving it through a theoretical approach, okay, where okay, so and the main thing in the thesis, you have to highlight the novelty and originality of your work. Okay, so usually when we, as an examiner, we would be looking where is the novelty, what is your contribution. Okay, so if you are introducing A, then you must justify that A is something new. Okay, A is something different. So if the examiner would not be able to see it, A is just an old method, an old way, then you have to find ways on how to highlight on the novelty and originality of your contribution. So that's the key ideas of a thesis. Is this a scholastic work? Okay, and it's original, and you must find the niche or the novelty and originality of your work. Okay, so let me just put it in in summary, the 40, you need the 40. Okay, number one is, of course, the topic. Okay, so the topic must be of your interest, and your supervisor approve of the topic. Okay, he or she is able to supervise, and he or she might invite other supervisors who have the expertise that can help you in your research, right? Now, how to identify a topic? Now, the best way, I would recommend now, so you identify the areas that you would like to do your research. Now, let's say Wan Haja, she's doing on education now. Let's say AI tools in education, for example, right? So now, so we would like to get the recent topic. So the best source would be look at the current conferences. Okay, conferences in 2023, upcoming conferences in 2024, or maybe on 2022. Okay, and you will be able to gauge the current discussion on that particular topic, and that could be your start in finding what would be the possible topics that you can choose for your research. Number two is taxonomy. So this is taxonomy actually helps you to focus on your research. Okay, taxonomy of knowledge means you would be able, you identify the discipline or the field of your research. Now, let's say, for example, now one of my students, he's doing a research PhD on ethics on AI. Okay, so ethics on AI. So I would be recommending him to read on articles or books related to AI, the discussion on ethics on AI. But at the same time, I would also ask him to read books or articles related to the philosophy of ethics. Yeah, the philosophy of ethics is one element of philosophy. Okay, and looking at the fundamental theories and so on. So the taxonomy actually would help you to decide the field and what kind of reading and the scope of your work, which I will detail out later. Right? And number three would be the thesis statement. The third T is the thesis statement. So a thesis statement will help to give direction to your thesis. Okay, so a thesis statement is an assertion. Okay, you claim something, and so your whole thesis will provide the arguments or the reasons to support your thesis statement. Okay, now for example, I would say, yes, AI tools is good for education, right? However, it could lead to academic dishonesty and also reduce of writing skill, for example. Okay, so that is my thesis statement. So my literature review, my data collection, my data analysis methodology must support this thesis statement. Okay, so it gives you the focus and also the direction of your research. Okay, and the fourth T is the trends. So trends means what is the current discussion of the topic that you choose. Okay, and besides conference, you can also go to magazines. You know, for example, in my area AI, we have the AI magazine, and that's where I would be able to get, to get what is the latest discussion, issues, concerns related to AI, for example. Okay, so these are the 4 T's that I would recommend you to focus on. Okay, sort of give you the direction, yeah, on your thesis. Okay, let me detail out. So the number 1 is the topic. So you go through the latest conference promotion, brochures, posters, look at the theme, look at the track discussion, and get the title of the keynotes, for example. Okay, the keynote, who are the keynote speakers. So those would give you some ideas on the latest topic or the recent research interest on your particular field. Okay, and match this the topic with your interest and of course your supervisor. So he might not be his prime interest, but it could be he could approve the topic, and for you to pursue with that discussion, because sometimes topic come from the students, some topics come from the supervisors, especially supervisors who already have a research grant. Okay, and again, from the very beginning, keep asking the question, so what, to yourself, yeah, not so that you will be able to justify even to yourself why I need to do a research on this topic. Okay, why do I need to do a PhD for this topic? Can I get a PhD from this topic, and so on, right? So that's the first one. Okay, the second one, the second thing, which is taxonomy. Okay, so taxonomy is actually to identify the field area of your research. It could be a transdiscipline, or it could be a multidiscipline. For example, my example just now, ethics on AI could be your readings. Okay, your could be from specifically from the AI field. Another one could be from the philosophy. So they also discuss on ethics and so on, and try to identify the sub areas and so on. Okay, so so the taxonomy actually to help you to decide the body of knowledge. It will later would also help you to identify what kind of journals or what kind of conference that you can submit based on this field area of your research. For example, another student of mine, she did her PhD is on brain-computer interface. Okay, brain-computer interface. So, and she will be using machine learning for her data analysis. So again, is on AI, machine learning, data analytics. But she also read articles on the areas of neuro. So one of her supervisor is a colleague of mine from the medical school, okay, who has an expertise on that one. Okay, and so finally she come up, her research area is neuroinformatics. Okay, I have a diagram I will show you, and neuroinformatics is actually consists of 2 areas, which is on the neurology and intelligent informatics. Okay, and I will show you how you would identify the scope from this taxonomy. Okay, so you identify the subfield, and from here you can also identify the gaps actually from and the new areas to venture into. Okay, so these are tools that can help you to identify the scope, okay, and the direction of your work. Now, for example, So based on what the research focus that I'm doing now, so I have a responsible technology. Okay. So I can, from my reading, I can divide, I can classify responsible technology into two, which is the responsible use of technology and responsible user of technology, for example. Now, but in my research, I would be interested on the responsible use of technology. So from my further readings, then these are the parameters related to responsible use: safe, respectful, and ethical, for example. Okay, and responsible user, user need to protect their personal information, and user need to respect the technology. Okay, don't misuse the technology and so on. But what I'm interested is on the responsible use of technology, on the ethical aspect. Okay, so I'm focusing now, zoom into the ethical aspect. And when I read further, okay, let me just move this. Okay, and when I read further, then there's a lot of discussion ethics on science and technology, on business, on artificial intelligence. So now my interest is, if we go up from here, responsible technology, responsible use, the ethical side of it, and zooming in into AI, which is my specific area. Okay, right. And if you read further, under AI, the parameters of ethics in AI, the key elements are accountable, trustworthiness, and justice. Okay, and then I zoom in. Okay, and then that is one aspect on the responsible technology. So, and then I go into the philosophical. So I read what are the ethical theories involved. So they have 4 types of theories. Okay, so based on my reading, and I choose the virtue-based ethical aspect because I would like to discuss on the Islamic principle of ethics. And finally, so this is my taxonomy of knowledge, and the areas or the readings that I need to do is, or the keywords that I can use: responsible technology, responsible use, the ethical AI, on the aspect of trustworthiness. And I'm looking from the ethical theory, which is a virtue-based ethical theories, and I will be looking on the Islamic principle. Okay, so virtue-based is something that related to religion. So that's how you can actually identify, determine the direction of your research. And this also help in writing your literature review, which is chapter 2. Okay, so of course this is something that you need to discuss with your supervisor. Okay, and so when we look at this, then we realize that probably we need to work on trustworthiness, but looking on the Islamic principle. And so that's where the contribution of, for example, my trustworthiness of responsible AI technology based on Islamic principle. Okay, so this taxonomy can be your map for even for your literature review. Okay, so far.
Okay, very good.
Okay, okay, so I will I'll proceed to the next example. This is also an example from my student. So based on her reading and our discussion, and we realized that brain-computer interface comes from neuroinformatics, for example. So neuroinformatics comes from 2 body of knowledge. One is neuroscience. So as a supervisor, so I invited my friend from the medical faculty to be a co-supervisor so that she can give her professional input to the research. And the other one is on intelligent informatics. So we read through and we were able to identify under neuroscience as neurodata, neuroprosthetic. So brain-computer interface is under neuroprosthetic. And then we have the motor imagery and so on. Okay, and that's when so that's when she identified that her first objective is here. She will focusing on single channel, okay, to get the brain signals based on single channel. And then from the intelligent informatics, she will do classification. Okay, and these are the techniques that you would propose. That becomes a research objective 2, and of course research objective 3 is the performance evaluation of the method. Okay, so this is an example. So this taxonomy will help you in finding papers, in finding conferences or journals that you can submit, and of course in writing your chapter 2 especially. Okay, so it will give you the map. Okay, number 3 is the trend. So so trends is very important. You get current with your knowledge. So so as I mentioned previously, one of the sources is conferences. So look at the conferences, similar topic, similar theme. Okay, so look at the topic, look at the track, the keynote speaker, and even the topic of the keynote, for you to get an idea what is the current discussion. Okay, books is not suitable because books, you know, sometimes it takes 1 or 2 years to publish, so you might be the topic might not be as current as conferences. Okay, now one of the tools that you can use is called lead map. Okay, so lead map. So lead map is actually an AI tool that you can use to actually do a mapping of the articles and any related articles. Okay, and you can use lead map tutorials on YouTube how to explore. I've just been introduced to this tool quite recent, so I haven't really fully explored, but based on my short encounter with lead map, I think it's very useful. Okay, probably we can just okay, so if you can see here, you can register, it's free, but you need more features, then you need to pay. But even with the free version, for example, I just search an article, ethics on AI, and it will list down all the articles, and it shows how these articles are connected. Okay, and from there you can see what and with the year attached to these dots, so you will be able to go through the article, okay, and see how many people cited that paper, for example. Okay, and this will help you to actually understand what is the current discussion do. Okay, what is the current discussion? So you can use this AI. I mean, if we have time at the end, then probably I can show you, but it is very simple to use actually. Okay, so next is the thesis statement. So so you have to come up. Of course, you have to revise your thesis statement from time to time, but a thesis statement is a concise summary of the main point of your thesis, the main argument or the claim of your research. It's an assertion related to your work, usually expressed in one sentence, so very short. Okay, and it has the topic and controlling idea, and it indicates the stance, your stance on a topic. And usually we write it at the end of the introductory section of chapter 1, or if you are writing an article at the end of section 1 of the introductory. Okay, so this is a claim that you relate to your research, and your thesis, your data analysis, data collection methodology would actually support this claim. Okay, so it's a 3-point thesis statement. You have a topic, an idea, an assertion related to it, and the reasons justifying the claim. Okay, so so how to come up with the thesis statement? Ask a question about your topic. Okay, write your initial answer, and then develop your answer by including reasons. So why it is important, why do you need to study this? Okay, and you can do refine. So I'll just show you some example. Now, for example, my interest is on AI tool, which would be able to increase productivity. Okay, but however, by using AI tool, it could lead, could have an impact on writing skills. Okay, for example, I depend too much on ChatGPT or BART, then my writing skill could, it could reduce my writing skills because I'm so dependent on BART and ChatGPT, for example. Okay, so is this true? So this is the claim that I need to give the evidence whether it's true or it's false, or it is based on situations and so on. And AI too could have an impact also on academic integrity. So these are the topic and the claims. So my thesis or my writing, my article, for example, need to give evidence on this claim. Okay, so a thesis statement is very important to give the direction on what kind of evidence that you need to collect and so on. So this is some example. Now, for example, AI is a tool that can be used to enhance college students' writing experience, but without proper safeguards, it can impede writing skills and compromise academic integrity. So this is the topic, okay, and this is the concern, right? So, right, so some other examples: climate change will cause a mass refuge crisis by 2050. So your work would either give the evidence through pro or agree or disagree with this thesis statement. So you have to collect the evidence to support, or maybe it's not able to support this claim. Okay, so these are some other examples, right? Okay, so what about hypothesis? Okay, so you can have both. You can have thesis statement, you can have hypothesis if your work involve quantitative. Okay, so for example, you are doing a survey study, okay, and you collect some data, then of course then you need a hypothesis. So you can have both. You have thesis statement at the beginning in chapter 1, but your hypothesis will be in chapter 3, where you discuss on the methodology. So thesis statement is to summarize an argument or a claim that you would provide evidence, and your hypothesis statement is to predict some relationship between two or more variables. So usually thesis statement is in the introduction and hypothesis in the method section. Okay, so if you are using quantitative, then probably you will have both. Yeah. So this 40 actually will start your starting point of organizing what you plan to do, okay, and what is the current trends, and what kind of claims that you would like to put forward and that you would like to give the evidence. Okay, and the taxonomy is actually for you to identify the scope of your study. Okay, so and you will have also in your in writing up your literature review. Okay, so this is the first part on mapping on the topic and on your thesis. Okay, so far can you follow?
Can, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so I proceed to the next one. So you need to gradually introduce your story. So I call it story because that's what the word used by my supervisor. Yeah. So and he give an example like Hindustan movie. You know, they don't put everything in the beginning, so you keep, so that you will keep waiting for what's next and what's next and what's next, right? So gradually introduce your story. So if, for example, in chapter 1, don't put everything, just put the key points. Okay, but if the reader or the examiner would like to read more, then they have to go to the second chapter, for example. Okay, and if they want to know how am I going to achieve this, and they go to the methodology and so on. So that's what I mean by gradual introduction to your story, right? So so here I introduce the 4R. Yeah, the 4R. Of course, your story must begin with the problem. Okay, so you need a problem, and you know, the famous phrase in research is the problem is I don't know what is the problem. Okay, so research problem is very important, and as an examiner, okay, usually we would read through the thesis, especially chapter 1 first, to understand what is the problem that these students is trying to solve. Okay, and then the methodology, how is she or he going to solve this problem, and what is the result or the outcome of this research. Okay, so the research problem. Now, that's why studying the current trends is very important. Okay, so you study the current trends, okay, and discuss with your supervisor based on the taxonomy of knowledge. You would be able to identify which area probably that we can go into a new area, a new way of doing things, and so on. And you would identify what is the target state. Okay, so the trends, so the difference between what you plan to achieve and what is the current trend is your gap analysis. So this is how you would start identifying your problem. So what is the gap analysis? Okay, now for example, with the brain-computer interface research that one of my students is doing, so the trends is the current research, mostly they read the brain signals using multi-channel. You know, they will wear a cap on the head of a person, and you can see electrodes all over the cap. Okay, now she introduced, rather than use a lot of electrodes, why don't we just use one and in a form of headband? Okay, so that is a target, that's a desired state, so that it would be practical for us to use in our daily life. Okay, so that becomes her gap analysis. So using one channel instead of multiple channel. Okay, and from that starting point, then she start reading and how to read the one channel brain signal, how to do data analysis, and what are the algorithm to be used, and so on. So it begins with identifying the trends and what is your target, and that the difference would be the gap analysis. Okay. Okay, one of the tools that would be very useful for you to get the gap analysis, another one is the literature matrix. Okay. Now, just now I introduced you to the lead map. So lead map will give you the connection between one paper to another paper. Okay, so you can collect all this information and put them in tables. Okay, so you have the author, and it is recommended that you arrange this author and date according to the sequence. So for example, begin with 2020 and then 2021, 22, and so on, so that we can see how the topic developed through 1 year to another year, and so on. And then you can identify what are the items that you want to evaluate this paper, or to review this paper. So for example, here, this example is based on what is the conceptual framework being used in this paper, what is the research question and hypothesis, the methodology, what was the analysis and result used, and what is the result and the conclusion, and so on. So you have your literature matrix, okay, and you can have more than one table. Okay, so for example, I would have one table on ethics on AI model, okay, and I will get the articles and I will do the comparison. Okay, so maybe another table would be the model on trustworthiness AI, for example. Okay, and I have another table and do my analysis. Okay, so literature matrix would actually help to organize your thoughts, and you would be able to identify the similarities and differences between the related work, the research work, and you could also see the historical trends, yes? How the topic develops, from 1 year to another year. And from this literature matrix, you would also be able to identify the gaps. Okay, what has not been done? What are the most algorithm used? Okay, why didn't they use another algorithm, for example? So that's how helps your thinking, on this gap analysis, right? So Okay, and another one, which I would also always recommend my students to do systematic review. So in your literature review could be, there's be one section, and could be only one section, and it could be the most critical part of your research problems that you would like to investigate further. Okay, so so in a systematic literature review is an independent academic method that aims to identify and evaluate all relevant literature on a topic in order to derive conclusion about questions under consideration. So a systematic literature review also could be your I said method to find or to refine the gap analysis or the research problem. Okay, so here is an example. For example, in this study, so they identify the databases that they would like to use. Okay, and then they do database filtering. Okay, and then and they look through on the title and the abstract review, which is related to your research question. Of course, in systematic literature review, you have to start with a research question. Okay, and then you would filter the title and abstract which is related. Okay, and then there's a method. You have to do inclusion and so on. And finally, this researcher identified only 65. Okay, so from these 65 papers, she investigate further. And if you look, for example, this is an example. So from this systematic literature review, for example, she observed that the observed dimensions were, so based on these 65 studies, she was able to identify there was social dimension, there are educational dimension, and personal dimension. Okay, and from this SLR, we call it SLR, within the personal dimension, it can be observed that very few articles that deal with the SI concept directly address students' emotion. So this is the gap. Okay, so not much discussion on students' emotion. So this is a problem, considering that customer emotions are a critical part of the CX, customer satisfaction. So added to this is the problem that emotion and feelings are not considered as variables to estimate customer satisfaction. So from the SLR, so this author were able to identify a new variables, which is emotion, the customer emotion, in order to evaluate customer satisfaction. So this is an example of SLR. And SLR is something you can begin with SLR, and usually I would encourage students to submit their SLR to journals and so on, because even if you want to find something related to your topic, find papers which is an SLR, because they already do the summarization for you. Okay, so it's a good paper to search that this doing SLR on a particular topic. Okay, so they already filter the database, and they already find the most relevant articles related to the question, and they already get a summarization of what they have read through. Okay, so it's good for you to also submit. Usually they welcome SLR, and to me SLR is something which is a way of helping other researchers, actually, because you already have them reading through all those articles. Okay, so that's the first part on identifying the research problem. So number one, understand the trends. Okay, so what and based on the taxonomy of knowledge and the trends, so you identify what is your target. So the target and the trends, the difference between target and end is your gap analysis. Okay, and you can scrutinize this gap analysis by now coming up with your literature matrix. It can be one, it can be more than one. Okay, and also another one is the SLR. That could also help you to identify what is the gaps in that particular topic or research question that you have already established. Okay, so that's the first one. Okay, the first R. The second R is the research objective. Okay, so from your research problem, you identify the gaps. So you already identify the issues that you want to focus. Probably in that gap analysis, there are a lot of issues that you would like to handle. Okay, so but you would like to focus, zoom in only into only probably one aspect of it. For example, in my area just now, the example, ethical AI, responsible technology, on the use of that responsible use of technology and the ethical aspect. And I am studying only on the trustworthiness, for example. Okay, so I already identified the specific scope or area that I would like to do my research on. Okay, and from this research problem, you come up with the questions related to the gaps and focus. Because the issues will be so many, the problems will be so many, but for your thesis, you just you come up with the questions that focus only questions that you would like to answer in your thesis. Okay, and so for a PhD, for example, it could be a minimum of 3 and could be more, right? But all the questions must be related to the problem and also your thesis statement just now that I've mentioned earlier. Okay, so based on this research question, usually research question and research objective, they have similar statements. So for example, if my research question is how to develop an ethical AI model from the Islamic perspective, for example, then my research objective will be, instead of how, I would just change it to to develop an ethical AI model from Islamic perspective. Okay, so research question and research objective is related. So it's just you change from the question into on to what do you plan to achieve. Okay, and what kind of answers that you would like to find related to the question. Okay. So for example, my research problem is I briefly need an AI system used to predict cancer which are fair and unbiased. Okay, there's a lot of AI system used to predict cancer, but now specifically I would like that the AI system would be able to do a prediction which is fair and unbiased. Okay, so my research question would be, what are the ethical implications of AI in cancer AI prediction system? And the research objective could be to explore the ethical implications of AI and develop recommendation. You know, this just as an example. Okay, so, and it has to be with the same tone of statement. Yeah? Okay, so that's the research objective. So research objective are the answers to the questions. Okay, the questions are related to the problem. Okay, so you have a problem. What are the questions that you want to that you would like to get the answer, and the objective is the answers that you plan to achieve, yeah, from your research. Okay, so how do you plan it? So that is your methodology. Okay, and the tools that I usually recommend students to use is what I call research mapping. So you put down your research question. Okay, what are the issues of concern, and then your research objective. Okay, related to that particular questions. And then the research methodology, how are you going to achieve this objective? What are the steps that you need to do, the activities that you need to do to achieve objective 1? And finally, what are the deliverables? So once I achieve objective 1, what do I get? Okay, now, now for example, you might have question 1 and question 2 related to objective 1. Okay, so in order to answer question 1 and question 2, I establish objective 1 to answer question 1 and question 2 related to the research problem. Okay. Now, in order to achieve objective 1, okay, in order to achieve objective 1, these are the activities involved. For example, step 1, let's say I would like to identify what are the parameters related to ethical AI. So my step 1 could be, besides literature review, I could be do an interviewing, you know, so that could be part of the activities. So it's the literature review, the content analysis, the interview with experts, for example, experts related to ethics, probably experts in the philosophy, experts in the AI. So that could be the activity that that help you to identify the parameters which is related to objective 1, for example. Okay, step 2 activity, probably step 2 is to do your SLR. That's where you would scrutinize further, and you would be able to identify what are the parameters related. Okay, so it is not meaning that objective 1 can have more than one question. Okay, and objective 1 can have more than one activities in order to achieve objective 1. Okay, so what is the outcome of objective 1? Is the parameters defined. So for example, from the literature review, I would be able to identify 4 parameters, but based on this methodology, I decide I would like to only focus into 1, and I have to give justification why only 1. Okay, so for example, from your activities here, you identify 15 parameters, but for your outcome of your research, you only use 5, and of course you have to justify why only use 5, you know, rather than all 15 and so on. Okay, so so you have to do this mapping, because this would be this would guide you, and to make sure that your research question, your research objective, and your research methodology and your deliverables are all connected and well synchronized. You know, sometimes you ask a different question but with different objective, and you get a different outcome. So this is not well synchronized. Yeah? So this research mapping is to make sure that everything is in the right, how to say it, connected, all are connected. So your objective must be connected to your question, methodology related to your objective and your question. Okay, and your deliverables actually answers objective 1 by doing this activity 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so all this must be related. Okay, so maybe you can have another question 3 for objective 2, and further activities 5, 6, and 7. And another question 4 for your objective 3, and another activities 8 and 9, for example. So this is just an example. And this is my recommendation. Okay, this is my recommendation. It would be more convenient. You can focus better when you write, for example, 1 outcome or 1 objective, 1 chapter. Okay, so that when you write chapter 4, you only focus everything related to objective 1. Okay, so what is your objective? What are the activities that you have done, and what did from that activities? What were the findings that you obtained? Okay, and finally, what was the outcome for that particular objective 1, and put that in chapter 4. Okay, and objective 2, chapter 5, objective 3, chapter 6. Okay, or it could be sections. Yeah, section 4.3 is the objective 1, 4.8 for objective 2, and probably 4.10 for objective 3. But that chapter could be very long. You know, so it is good if you can separate the chapters according to objective. So when you write your chapter, you will only focus on that particular objective and that particular activities related to that objective. Okay. So, okay, how much time do you have, Dr. Roshan?
Let's say another 10 minutes, Prof.
Okay, 10 minutes. Okay, so
and then we go for
so
Q&A
basically,
after that.
okay. So basically, this is what sort of tools that can help you is the 4 T's, okay, and the 4 R. Okay, so this so the trends will help you to identify the research problem, and the thesis statement also is related to your research problem. Okay, and your objective and methodology should actually support the thesis statement. Okay. Okay, and so if you look from on the chapters, yeah. So taxonomy, trends, thesis statement, research problem, and research objective is your chapter 1. So this would be the roadmap of your thesis actually. Okay. So so chapter 1 is will give the idea what your thesis is all about. And usually when we read thesis, we will read chapter 1, and then I will go to the final chapter, conclusion, and on the findings to understand, and then start reading again, yeah, from chapter 1 up to each chapter. So so chapter 1 will be the taxonomy. So this will actually give the scope and limitation of your work, the trends, so that your work is recent and you are bringing the recent work to the next level. Okay, and the thesis statement would be the claim that you related to your work, and you give evidence to support that claim. And then your chapter 2 will be the literature review, and I would recommend you to use LeadMap. Okay, because LeadMap would be able to give you the connection between one article to another articles, and you can see the citation, how many people have cited the work. Okay, and and from that you can do a literature matrix. Okay, so you identify probably, for example, what are the algorithm used, the technique used, approach, method, and so on. And you make a comment on the strength and the weaknesses of that technique, for example. And from there, you would able to identify what are the gaps. Okay, where can we improve, or what new approach can we introduce, for example. Okay, so that's in your literature review, including the systematic literature review. Okay, and then chapter 3 was your research methodology. So make sure your research methodology is well synchronized with your objective. So objective 1, okay, if I go back here, so actually this part, all step 1, step 2, and step 3, activity 1 up to activity 7 is your research methodology. Okay, yeah, it's your research methodology. Now, for example, maybe for step 1 and step 2, I'm doing besides content analysis, I'll do an interview with the experts, for example, an SLR. Probably objective 2, I will do data analysis. So I need to do the data pre-processing, data segmentation, data selection, and then the analysis, and so on. Okay, so it has its own methodology. Yeah. And then step 4 probably is the performance evaluation. So performance evaluation, maybe you will be using multi-criteria decision making, DEFI method, and so on. So, you know, so the whole thing, step 1 up to step 4, or activity 1 up to activity 9, is your research methodology. So make sure it is synchronized with your objective. Okay. So so your research methodology is your chapter 3. Don't put your result here, research methodology, so that you can focus on your writing only on the how. How am I going to achieve objective 1? Okay, so what kind of experiment that you would conduct, and the data that you would collect, or secondary data that you use from which library, for example. So it's all on the how. Okay, so it's like a recipe books. How many tablespoons of sugar, flour, and so on. Okay, it's just on the how. Okay, and the findings, let it discuss in the research deliverables, which is chapter 4, 5, and 6. 4 for objective 1, 5 for objective 2, 6 for objective 3, and you have chapter 7 for the conclusion. Okay. So keep in mind with this 40 and this research mapping. So I guess this could actually help you to organize your thoughts. So you might have a big A0 paper or a mahjong paper on the wall, and you put all this, the mapping of this research question and so on, or it can be only in your laptop, right? So as a conclusion, the 4T and 4R and this research mapping is actually your Waze or your Google Map. So it will help you to give the directions, left or right, don't go here and so on. Okay, and hopefully, inshallah, by having a clear direction on how to write your thesis based on these tools, the 4T, 4R, and this research mapping, and the literature matrix, lit map, and also SLR. And finally, inshallah, we hope that you will finally able to write the whole thesis and pass your viva and graduate with PhD or master. Okay, Dr. Roshan, I think that's all. There's another part. Oh, sorry. I think this is my slide. Okay, just one final note. Actually, the key content of your thesis. So number one is so what? Okay, so why do I need to study ethics on AI? So what if, and things like that. Okay, so what is ethics on AI? So what is new? Okay, and how am I going to develop a trustworthy AI application? Something. So you have to keep asking these questions while writing your thesis, or even when you are writing a paper. And from your title and abstract, it should give a summary, a very short summary or a description on what is the problem that you want to focus on, the objective of your study, the method and outcome. Okay, for this example, this is a thesis that I was appointed as an examiner. So the title was Case Start Prediction and Mitigation of Readers' Complexity in Legal Domain Using Deep Learning Techniques. So we suggest that the student amend the title by putting the precise legal case outcome prediction, because he keep mentioning in his thesis about precise prediction. So that precise become the objective. Okay, so why I need to delete? So what? Because it is precise. Okay, so the topic is on legal case outcome prediction and text summarization, and the problem is to mitigate readers' complexity, because legal, they have so many documents, so many acts and so on. So how can they help the lawyers, for example, to read all these documents, legal documents? So mitigate readers' complexity is the problem, and the method is using deep learning techniques. So even your title will be able to give the idea, the problem that you want to solve, the topic, and then the objective for your work. Okay, so the precise is the contribution actually, and by using a deep learning method. Okay, so I think that's all that I can share, some tips on how you can do your thesis writing. I'm sure you already aware of the structure. Okay, chapter 1, chapter 2, and so on. So what I'm sharing today is actually more on the tips on how to organize your thoughts, what are the tools that you can use, so that you don't go left and right, but just maintain on the right course of your study. Okay, so I think that's all, Dr. Roshan, that I can share this morning. I hope it would benefit the students, and I welcome any questions, inshallah.
Okay, thank you very much, Prof. Norita, for sharing your thoughts and experience, especially in thesis writing strategies. You mentioned that you've graduated 20 PhD students. Yeah, Prof? Betul? 20?
Yeah.
If you can imagine.
Yeah.
So,
because at one time, we don't have many lecturers. The young lecturers were doing their PhD, so we took so many students.
So to graduate one PhD student is very challenging, and you can imagine Prof. Norita has already graduated 20. Okay, so I'm sure the sharing that she gave just now was based on her experience. Okay, and I would like to open for question and answer question. I think we can spend around 15 to 20 minutes. However, I would like to remind all of you, please register yourself to get your e-certificates, okay? If you register initially for the event, it's just to get your Zoom link. However, if you want an e-certificate for your record, please refer to the link in the chat box, okay? And please register yourself. And with Magic, you can get your e-certificate directly be emailed to your email address, okay? So maybe you can wait for 5 to 10 seconds and you will receive your e-certificate. Please try. Okay, if you have any problem, please let me know. All right, and I would like to open for a question and answer session. Maybe you can ask your question in the chat box. Maybe Prof. Norita can select the question that she wants to answer for the limited time that we have. Okay, please. Any question?
Okay, there's one question. Okay, the slides, macam mana, Dr. Roshan? I can send it to you.
Okay. The slides. Please visit our Facebook page. We will share the link of the recording of the session and also the link to get access to the slides on our Facebook page. So please follow our Printis Facebook page. Okay, so you get all the updates on our Facebook page. Thank you. Facebook link. At the end of the session, I'll share again the Facebook link. Okay, so maybe we can focus on the question on the topic that we are discussing today first, on thesis writing strategies. Okay, any question on thesis writing strategies?
Okay, I saw one question on the software. Probably I can let me try and share the screen. I provide the link is app.litmaps.co. So you can find the tutorial on using the litmap. Let me see. Apps.
Are you trying to share your screen, Prof?
Yeah, you can see.
No, you just said that started screen sharing, but nothing is appearing.
Oh, okay.
Maybe you can unshare and share again.
Okay.
If you have any question in the meantime, please write your question in the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, so this is a lead map. So so you can create a free account. Now let's see if I can demonstrate from here. Now let's say I would like to find article on my area, ethics on AI model, for example. Okay, so these are all the articles. Okay, and I can generate a seed map. Okay, and so it shows all the articles which are related to my search, which is on AI models. Okay, so you can go through all these papers, and you can see here the citation. Okay, this is all the recent papers. Okay, and you can download the information, and after that you can do the literature matrix. Okay, you can select which interests you. So they list out everything. So this helps in because if you just Google, you might miss some of the papers. So even when I use them, there are important papers that I managed to get from this lead map. Okay, so did you get the link?
Yeah, we got the link. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, Prof, there are some other questions in the chat box.
Okay, in your opinion, do you accept full PhD thesis that using secondary data for analysis? Yeah, I think that's not a problem, because you can use primary, you can use secondary, but usually, for example, in some of the PhD students that I supervise, they use secondary data and they focus on the technique. So the secondary data is actually a benchmark data. So that's how you can compare your result with other researchers who use the same data. Okay, so of course it can be a PhD thesis, but the focus is on the technique actually. Okay, and you try to find other researchers who use the same secondary data, then you can also compare your result and the other researchers. I think there's no problem with that one. Yeah, geographical location. Yeah, it would be possible. For example, one student, he did data analysis on weather, climate change, climate actually. Monsoon. So of course, monsoon is it is very much connected with the geographical location. So one study has done an analysis in India, Kerala, India. So what he did, so he used that as the reference and replicate the study in Malaysia. But of course, in Malaysia, the parameters are different. The wind direction, or all those parameters are different. So yes, of course, geographic location could be a novelty. Okay, because the parameters is definitely different from other geographic areas. So you have to not just I mean, you have to really justify, why geographic location is a good justification that by performing at other geographical area, it will be a contribution. So I don't think that is a problem of novelty. It's just how to justify that. Okay, so for example, probably cultural, I don't know. I mean, you have to find the parameters which differentiate between the region. Purely comparison, I don't think it will be a novelty. Purely comparison is not a novelty. Comparison is just to benchmark your work with some other people. But before you compare between A and B, you must propose B. Okay, so you propose a B method, for example, B technique, for example, and then you compare your B technique with some other A. Then probably there's a novelty because your technique is better, or give a different result and something like that. So purely comparison between, for example, between deep learning and statistic, probably not so strong, not so novelty, but you propose something and then you compare with statistic or compare with some other thing. Then that new technique could be the novelty. Any specific methods in thesis writing? I'm not really sure I understand the question. Giri, can you clarify what do you mean by specific method in thesis writing?
Okay, good afternoon, Prof.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Norita, you can hear me? All right.
Yes, yes, very clear.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Okay. I mean, just based on your experience, if you can remember any, you know, examiner, right? If you have seen any of the contents where you would how to say, you would prefer if the researcher wrote in a different way or something like that?
I think that based on my experience as an examiner, usually the theses are written in the the common approach. You start with chapter 1, the introduction, then your literature review, then method, and so on. But there are some other approach in thesis writing where it is paper based, but I've never been an examiner for that kind of thesis. But that is also possible. You have to check with your university regulation. But I think in USIM, it is possible if you write your thesis using the paper-based approach, which I think which is also quite common in UK, in the Europe universities and so on. You have to check with and see whether it's allowed, but academically, it's no problem.
Maybe
I don't have much.
sorry, I would like to rephrase the question. Maybe he's asking about what are the bad examples of thesis that you come across as an examiner or as a supervisor. Maybe the result does not reflect the objective or
Yes.
insufficient content, or I think that's what he meant by discourage.
I see.
Okay. Yes, thanks. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Shan, for clarifying. Yeah. Number one, the problem is not clear. So what is the problem actually that you want to solve? Sometimes we just, for example, we mention, for example, the problem is the student would like to develop an ontology for some medical application. So that is not a problem. That is not a problem. But you have to ask, okay, you want to develop an ontology. Why? Why do you need the ontology? Why ontology would be good for the medical IT application, for example? So when we keep asking, so don't get intimidated when your examiner keep asking, because actually the examiner was trying to help you, trying to get your thoughts, what's inside your thoughts and get it and talk about it. Yeah. So finally, when we ask, so why he would like to use ontology, for example, in the medical IT, for medical IT application, because he said, that's because he's using in that rehabilitation. So they are using 3 different systems. Okay, 3 different systems. So they have system A, system B, and system C. So in order for system A, B, and C need to communicate, so they need the ontology so that they have a common term and definition, something like that. So the problem is because of the interconnection, okay, and they don't have a common terms and definitions. So you have to really scrutinize what is the root problem. I have a headache, but that is not a problem. I have a headache because I have a problem with my gastric or something. So get to the root problems, and to get the root problems, you have to do that literature review matrix and SLR to really understand what is the issue. Sometimes you begin with, you want to build an aeroplane, but when you do your reading and scrutinize and zooming in, finally what the problems with your aeroplane is the tire of the aeroplane, and you need to come up with a new screw for that tire of that aeroplane. So the problem with the aeroplane, the performance of the airplane, because of the screw being used for the tire, something like that. So that's why the key issues in most of the thesis is the problem is not clear. It's very vague. you know, and you have to really, that's why you need to do the literature matrix in order to understand the progress from A to B to C, and then you would be able to identify the weaknesses, okay, of the current approach and so on. Okay, so that's number one. The problem is not clear. And that is the key thing. If your problem is not clear, sometimes you have to do it, your QT, your Viva again, because we cannot understand what is it that you want to solve. And number two, once that you identify the problem, so what are the questions that relates to your problem? So you need to, the question will actually help you to scope down your study into only to that particular interest. Okay, so the questions would actually limit your research so that you don't go everywhere, but only to this particular section or region, right? So and then and your research question and objective must be synchronized. So check your research question. Is the objective and question, they are speaking the same thing, you know? So sometimes we talk about different problem, but your objective is different. So these are the things that you need to check. That's why when I submitted my first draft of thesis to my supervisor, so we sit down and he do a reverse engineer, you know. So I already got the findings and we work backwards to actually, you know, reword the objective, reword the problems and the question. So because we are, you know, sometimes all are disconnected, are not clear. Okay, so I think that's one of the main thing is problem, and then how you craft your research question would influence your research objective. Make sure it is synchronized, and then your research methodology is another issue, because your methodology should synchronize with your objective. You know, all the steps that you do must be related to objective. So objective 1, these are the steps. Objective 2, these are the steps. Objective 3, these are the steps. And all those are your research methodology. So I think that is the key issue. And I think I would recommend that when you discuss your findings based on your objective. Don't put everything that you have found from your research. So objective 1, these are the things that I did, and this is what I found out, and this is my conclusion. Okay, objective 2, this is what I did, the activities, the technique, the algorithm, okay, and this is the testing, the data, and so on, and this is what I found out, and finally the objective 3, and so on. Okay, so the important thing, always make sure that all those are synchronized. The main thing, the problem, the question, objective, methodology, and finally your findings. I think that's you know, answering Gigi's question and also Adizuka on how thesis chapter can be synchronized. So make sure you have your research mapping. You know, you have your, put it in Excel or table, your what is the question, and then connect it to your objective, then your methodology, and then your findings. Then see whether everything is well connected.
Okay, Prof, I think we have one final question, and then I think that's all for our session today. Maybe you want to answer the last question, Prof? Any tips for PhD students doing
qualitative data analysis, data collection done? Well, I don't have much experience in qualitative, but based on some of the students that as an examiner and so on, in qualitative data analysis, make sure you have a triangulation. They call it a triangulation. So don't depend only on one way of doing the validation. For example, don't just go to validate with one expert. So you must have some other. So you need to triangulate your triangulate is actually to validate more than one approach or one technique of validating your findings. Yeah. So for example, one student, she used fuzzy Delphi method, and then and number 2, she went to the expert and justify and validate the findings, whether this is in line with the current practice in the industry, for example. And probably the third one, you know, something like that. So make sure in qualitative approach, you have that triangulation steps, so that your result is well validated and it adds strength to your argument of your thesis. Okay, Dr. Shen, I think that's all I can share this morning, inshallah. Thank you very much for all the participants, and I really hope that what I've shared with you would benefit you, and all the best with your study. And we hope that it will help your journey much more comfortable and and enjoyable journey for your master or PhD study, inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you very much, Professor Norita, for sharing your valuable experience. And thank you everyone for joining us today. But before we end our session today, I would like to share with you, this is the final list of our Prentice postgraduate training series. So there's a lots of exciting topics to be discussed in our series that we start today, which is October 2023 until April 2024. Okay, so the first one is thesis writing strategies, and next month we'll have managing stress and mental health for postgraduate students. Can you see my screen right now, or is it not sharing? Sorry.
Now it's not sharing.
Oh, okay. All right. So next month we'll look about managing stress and mental health. Will be delivered by Dr. Alizi alias. And in January we have delivering impactful presentations. Okay, so which covers slide presentations, your viva or conferences, and this will be delivered by Associate Professor Dr. Zaid Omar. He's the winner of Fame Lab Malaysia. So he's a very good orator, very good presenter. And in February 2024, we have publishing in high impact journals. What I can see from the suggestion that all of you put in your forms, you want something on publishing in high impact journal, and this is the correct person, Dr. Ahmad Ilyas Rustan, lecturer in UTM. When he just finished his PhD, he already got like a double-digit H index in terms of publication. So he is very superb, and I think he's the best person for us to learn. And finally, in April 2024, Life After University, what's next? This will be delivered by Engineer Dr. Norsha Hafiz Shuaib. He was a lecturer and now he's an entrepreneur. He's now a COO of a company and established. So he'll be talking about what's next after university, when you get your PhD, when you get your master's, what you do with your certificates. Okay, either you struggle and strive to become lecturers and academics, or you go to industry. Okay, so he'll be sharing with us his thoughts on this. Okay, so, but most important, please follow our Facebook page, because all the registration information will be shared in our Facebook page. And do not miss the chance to register for all of this series of talks. Okay, so thank you very much again to Prof. Norita, and thank you to everyone for making your time for this session today. And hopefully, I wish you all the best in completing your master's or your PhD. And hopefully, we see you again in the future event of Prentice, especially next month. Okay, thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Dr. Rustan, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.